I hope we're starting. Hey everybody, my name is Matt Cutts and I used to work for several years on search at Google, and I wanted to share a couple stories from the olden days and see how that might tell us a little bit about fake news. So if you set your time machine to 2010, which is also when Hot Tub Time Machine came out, there was this new phenomenon. It was called content farms, and a lot of people were talking about it. And you might ask, okay, what is a content farm? Well, it's essentially a low-quality article written by someone who isn't really an expert in the field. We heard stories about people in the Philippines being paid 25 cents to write 200 to 500 words of content. And it got to be so common, low-quality sites making content, that people started to make satirical sites, like thecontentfarm.net, to calculate your age. Now, by the way, you multiply everything by 0 and add your age. You might wonder, how did content farms get by Google? Why didn't Google see it coming? And the answer is, it fell in the cracks of our org chart. It was just barely over the line, over the bar for not being web spam, but the search quality core ranking team thought, well, the web spam team ought to handle it. So there were a few people working on it, but for the most part, we didn't do that much until there was a really negative article, a brutal article written in early 2011, and then a pile-on happened, and suddenly we were scalded, we did a lot of soul searching, and a bunch of teams worked really hard for several weeks. And about 6 weeks after that first article, we launched a Chrome extension that let users block sites that they considered low quality. And we used that information to test our ideas and experiments and try out different things. And shortly afterwards, we launched an algorithmic search ranking change that affected almost 12% of queries, to a noticeable degree that a user might actually find something that would show up on their own. Now that's a huge percentage. So the world noticed and they decided to call the update Panda. It's actually named after a search engineer. It's not named after pandas. Now you might look at this and say, oh, it's a happy panda, so everything went really hunky-dory. The team saw a problem and they fixed it, right? What's the problem? Well, there was a lot of pain. For example, Panda caused so much negative revenue impact for Google, we actually had to mention it in our quarterly results, which was the first time I ever remember seeing something in an SEC filing like that. We also had a particular problem where a lot of people liked the way that rankings used to happen in Google, and so I and other people would get complaints from publishers about post-Panda ranking. At least one company continued to email me until they realized it's actually easier to get traffic on Facebook, and then I started to get fewer complaints from them over time. So just to take a little break, what have we learned so far from content farms? Well, it was a hard but tractable problem. The search team had the talent and the intent where they wanted to do it, and the outside coverage really made a huge difference. It galvanized the entire team. So we had smart folks who had the cycles to be able to tackle this, and importantly, the company had our back. They trusted us to do the right thing, even if it meant a revenue impact, a negative revenue impact for the company. There's one other story I want to tell. Matt Levine from Bloomberg talks about metrics. He says, the one thing that you can tell about metrics is, number one, it will be gamed. And you get what you measure is number one. And number two is, metrics will be gamed. And the fact of the matter is that works with engagement as well. So over a decade ago, Google had a slight problem with malware and adware. Some of us wanted to get rid of it, and a lot of people at Google said, it gets great engagement. People love all of these toolbars. And the fact is, users, whenever you have a lot of malware, it turns out they put a lot of junk in front of users. And so users click on that junk. So yes, there were a ton of clicks, but they were angry clicks. And we didn't have a signal or a dimension to measure that. So, we can't just use air horns to fight fake news on social media. Let's take it back to fake news for a second, though. I think trying to look beyond our traditional metrics, trying to think about things beyond just engagement, is a good first step. For example, my friend says, if you want to get rid of ants, you need to create an environment that is inhospitable to ants. And so you need to take a step back and think about the entire ecosystem, the money that's involved, the actors, how you can push or pull to motivate them to try to make the right thing happen for users. So teams need to know that it's important. That can be internal or external if you poke them enough. You have to think about the ecosystem and how to align all of the different publishers' incentives, and especially money, including stopping showing ads for them. And metrics really matter. You might have to think about new dimensions. So this is my final slide. I want to say, what can we in this room do? I think it's fair that we keep the pressure on. Every single company that deals with this needs to know that it's important, or needs to realize it's in their enlightened self-interest to take care of. We'll save more nuance for the rest of the conference. Thanks very much.